I want to talk today about expectations. You may find that the first part of what I say expresses some things about your life that you don't want to admit to yourself. Some of you will find the second part of what I say about expectations of our country and our leaders to be very controversial. But it's Yom Kippur, and if we're not honest on Yom Kippur, we never will be. When the high holidays come every year, we think about our lives. How often have people said to me, this is not where I expected to be in my life at 40 or 50 or 60 or 70? Or the painful statement, this is not my life, I'm living somebody else's life. To illustrate this, let me read you the lyrics of a song. It's not simple to say, most days I don't recognize me. But I still remember that girl. She's imperfect, but she tries. She is good, but she lies. She's hard on herself. She's broken and won't ask for help. She's messy, but she's kind. She's lonely most of the time. She has all of this mixed up and baked in a beautiful pie. She's gone, but she used to be mine. It's not what I asked for. Sometimes life just slips in through a back door and carves out a person and makes you believe it's all true. If I'm honest, I know I would give it all back for a chance to start over and rewrite an ending or two. For the girl that I knew, she's gone, but she used to be mine. These lyrics are from the Broadway musical Waitress. She Used to Be Mine is a ballad written and composed by Sarah Bareilles. It's at the end of the show. Jenna, the main character, has gone through a lot, and she's at a very difficult point in her life. And the song is about losing one's sense of self. I understood this song the first time my daughter Sarah played it for me. I think that most adults can relate. She says she has some faults and she's made some mistakes, but she has a mix of qualities and failings, and she's like a beautiful pie that has different ingredients. And most of us can relate to that loneliness she sings about. And as we get older and people we love are no longer with us, we get lonelier. Most of us can relate to the feeling that you wind up at a point in life and you're not sure how you got here, and there's at least some disappointment. Sometimes life just slips in through a back door and carves out a person and makes you believe it's all true. Somewhere along the way, life no longer lived up to your expectations. Your relationships are not what you thought they would be. You're not sure where your life went. You're not sure why you're so different than you were. Why doesn't she say, that's what I used to be. I miss who I used to be. Instead, she says she, in the third person, she used to be mine. I don't belong to me anymore. She used to be mine. Why are we so unhappy and irritated and angry so often? Because things haven't gone like we expected them to go. Your expectations shape your reality. You need to be very aware of the expectations you have. Unrealistic expectations give us all kinds of trouble. So I want to give you some examples of expectations that mess up our lives. Expectation number one, life should be fair. We've all been told a million times that life isn't fair, but we still expect life to be fair. And we believe that any unfairness that we experience will somehow balance out. Wrong. Get over it. When something unfair happens, don't rely on outside forces to get you back on your feet. There isn't some consolation prize. And the sooner you stop expecting there to be, the sooner you can take actions that will make a difference. Expectation number two, everybody likes me. Wrong. I'm really nice. I'm really good. Why would anybody dislike me? When you think that everyone will like you, you end up with hurt feelings. You may be nice and you may be good, but there will be people who will simply not like you. And some of them are out to get you. When you assume that people will like you, you start making requests and demands that will accomplish nothing. Instead of expecting that people will like you, focus on earning their respect. Expectation number 3. People know what I'm trying to say. Wrong. People can't read your mind, and what you're trying to say is rarely what other people hear. You can't expect people to understand you just because you're talking. Your communication won't be clear until you take the time to understand the other person's perspective. But since we think we're always very clear, we expect number 4. People should agree with me. You expect people to agree with you because your ideas are so incredibly sound. Wrong. You need to remember that something that's obvious to you might not be obvious to someone with different experiences. Stop being so offended when people disagree with you. Give everyone what we need. Expectation number 5. Things will make me happy. Wrong. Manifests itself on all levels in so many unjust ways. During this last terrible year, as corruption and lies have overflowed daily like a mighty stream from the very top, I've been filled with many emotions, including rage and frustration and despair. But on an intellectual level, I've often wondered, how can some of us, good, intelligent people, friends of mine, people I care about, people I love, still hope in a leader who this week explicitly and publicly refused to commit to the peaceful transfer of power, who undermines our most precious institutions like elections and the post office, who clearly does not care about human suffering, who mocks our heroes who died for our country, who thinks he knows more than all the doctors and scientists. I want to tell you, my grandchildren understand more. My grandson Alexander, our rock star bar mitzvah, talks every day about the catastrophic effects of climate change. And by the way, he's a bar who does mitzvahs. My 11-year-old grandson, Avi, talks every day about what we have to learn from history and science. He knows that if you don't learn from history, you will repeat the mistakes of the past. 6-year-old Leah and 5-year-old Talia, first cousins who are like sisters, play these elaborate games of pretend, of make-believe, but in a split second come back to reality. They know the difference between fantasy and reality. Isabel Juliet Skolnick, 1 3/4 years old, 1 3/4, knows that bleach does not go in your body. My friends know that climate change is real, that we have to respect science, that history has a lot to teach us about how democracies turn into dictatorships, that fantasy is not reality, and that bleach is not medicine. But I think that in the face of so many problems, my friends are still hoping that someone has all the answers to all our questions. Wrong. To think that one person has all the answers is to make a mistake. We've made it before. President Obama is an intelligent, caring person. He drove me crazy when it came to many issues about Israel, and in general, I don't think he understood the world and how to respond to it. But I never doubted his goodwill. When he was elected, a lot of us felt really good because here was a person described as black, and after our long American nightmare of slavery and racism, we thought that he represented real change. But it became clear that the change was more symbolic than real. Despite electing a black president, American blacks have continued to endure hatred and discrimination. One of the most honest remarks I ever heard from any political candidate was when Mayor Pete Buttigieg of South Bend, Indiana, was confronted with his failure to transform the local police force to one that would be more racially inclusive. And you know what he said? He said, because I couldn't get it done. I'll take that response. I tried and I could not get it done. America has not gotten it done, and we should know this. All I ask of leaders is that they continue to try, that they not call peaceful protesters anarchists, that they understand that most people want to make this a better country for all of its citizens. What I don't ask of any president is that they get it done. Rabbi Tarfon said, it's not up to you to finish the task, but you cannot desist from trying and doing your part. We should not think of presidents as messiahs, whatever their background. A black president did not erase racism. Did a businessman help our economy? The Wizard of Oz was just a little con man behind the curtain who knew about smoke and mirrors. But the people of Oz believed in all the smoke and mirrors because they wanted to think that there was one person who could take on the wicked witches. Our presidents are not messiahs who are going to change the world. Now, Jewish people know all about messiahs. For God's sake, we invented the concept, and we have suffered plenty for it. In the 7th century BCE, King Josiah of Judah did everything right. He restored Judaism to the religion of the Torah. He got rid of all the idols. He was the most righteous, the most religious king in Jewish history. And then he made a tragic mistake, the kind of mistake people make when their greatness goes to their heads. He decided that since God was with him, he should get involved in a war between superpowers. God didn't tell him to get involved, and the superpowers told him to stay out of their superpower war. But he wouldn't listen, and he went into battle in a place called Megiddo. And guess what? He got himself killed. Everything was going great, but he believed what other people were saying about him. That's what happens to people, including people you know. They start believing what others say about them, and it goes to their heads. And if you're the leader of a country, and everything, every person, the stock market, war and peace, everything rises and falls on one word from you, you get a messiah complex. And it is very, very dangerous for you and for everybody else. So Josiah died on a battlefield that he never should have gone near. And to this day, we have a word Armageddon, which is a translation of Megiddo. Beware of Armageddon. It may be closer than you think. If you understand what is really going on, you know it may be very close indeed. I could speak for hours about the other false messiahs in Jewish history, Zerubbabel and Bar Kokhba and Shabbatai Tzvi. All disasters. I worry about America and its Messiah complex, and I worry about Israel and its Messiah complex. Before I came to Hamden, I was an assistant rabbi to a famous rabbi named Dr. Arthur Hertzberg. And in the 1950s, he wrote a great book called The Zionist Idea. In that book, he asked what would happen to the idea of Zionism. He predicted that there would be two groups, Messianic Jews and secular Jews. He was prophetic. 70 years later, Israel has deep divisions between Messianic and secular Jews. I'm scared of Messianism, of its false hopes, of its unrealistic expectations. It can lead to terrible disasters. Don't believe in a human being. Hope for leaders who are moral and good, and then know that you're going to disagree with them a lot. That's okay. What is not okay is taking anyone and turning him into a god. We don't have figures on our stained glass windows. Moses' name is not in the Haggadah. We believe in God. And even those of us who don't believe in a being called God believe in God-given rights like equality and freedom. Messianic thinking is simplistic thinking. Messianic thinking says, this guy's going to solve all of our problems. Vote for him and a chicken in every pot and pot in every chicken. Judaism says, you shall not worship idols, not American idols, not celebrity idols, and not con man idols. Messianic thinking is shallow thinking, but we're far from the shallow now. We're in the deep end. And when you're in the deep end, you can't let anyone dive on top of you. You have to be able to really swim. Do you want a reason to believe in God? We should believe in God so that we do not believe that any human being is God. I'm going to say that again. We should believe in God so that we don't believe that any human being is God. My theme today is expectations. An expectation is a belief that is centered on the future, and it may or may not be realistic. We have to be realistic about our lives. We shouldn't expect life to be fair or for everyone to like us or agree with us or even understand us. And we have to be realistic about our country. Sometimes I think about America and I say, she used to be mine. She still is, but we should be very anxious about where our country is going. The first step is to return to our basic values, like the law and truth and science and medicine and caring about others. We're far from the shallow now. We're in the deep end. And we have to remember that nobody can swim for us. And we're going to have to swim well to change our lives. I believe in America, but I am scared of the simplistic expectations Americans have of their leaders. Just like we get disappointed with our lives because we had unrealistic expectations to begin with, we ask things of presidents that turn them into false messiahs. But there are things that we should expect of our presidents. We should expect a president to care about the lives of all of his people. To use the image of the song, if America is a beautiful pie, it has all sorts of different ingredients. No one should be allowed to slice it up or to say goodbye to the American pie. We should expect a president to denounce Nazis and white supremacists. We should expect that a president protect us from enemies within and without. We should expect a president to say that he will commit to the peaceful transition of power if he loses the election. And if you know history, you know what can happen to a country. If you're Jewish, you know what can happen to a country. For the first time in my life, this week between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, I became terrified that American democracy itself is at stake right now. This is not a drill. This is not a drill. This is not a hypothetical. Like the song said, we have to fight. We have to get the fire back in our eyes. She used to be mine. Our lives used to be ours. We have to have realistic expectations about our lives and our kids, and our country used to be ours. Beware of false messiahs. Beware of greedy leaders who take you where you should not go. We're in the deep end. We're far from the shallow now. We have to get our lives back. We have to get our country back before it's too late.